Hello, people. Welcome to my podcast, The Law Life, where we explore the dynamic interactions of law, business, and personal journeys of our guest. So, today I am thrilled to introduce Vaniti Pandit, a seasoned legal professional whose career has seen seamlessly transition from the litigation to corporate. Vaniti has honed her expertise in contract management and in real estate law, crafting her innovative strategies that align legal imperatives with business objectives. See, she is the person who has seen both the journeys, both the worlds of legal, the corporate, and the litigation. So join me and let's deep dive into her experience and see how she has managed challenging transactions and she has navigated the evolving landscape of corporate. So how did you get inspired to pursue law as a career, and what led you to do specialization in contract management and real estate law?
So basically, I'm a first generation lawyer in my family. It was not a very easy thing. And I come from a very typical Punjabi business minded family. However, somehow I was always so intrigued and, drawn towards this field. I mean, with law and with the knowledge of law, it sort of gives you a power, you see,
Hmm.
that you know all the laws and you are very well aware of it. And I discussed this idea with my family, and by God's grace, they were also in line with me. It was not an easy decision, but yes, I took it and I jumped into it. And regarding contract law, I mean, I love the subject, since inception, my college, since theoretically, I just love the subject. I could relate to it. I academically also, I did really well in it. So, and real estate and contracting goes hand in hand. Being a litigation lawyer, also,
Mhm.
it just came naturally.
Okay. So any incident you could tell us about the contract management that that was a bit tricky, but you guys handled it very well.
Actually, all contracts, to be honest, are tricky, wherein, it gets into the negotiation.
Hmm.
However, I can share with you maybe a recent incident which is like very fresh in my mind. So we were negotiating a contract for an MNC bank, and with all of these MNC companies, you have to make sure of their compliances as well. I mean, you have to give them that comfort because they have a lot of compliances of their own, and at the same time you also need to safeguard your own company's interest.
Hmm.
So we hit a major roadblock with respect to indemnities, with respect to repair and maintenance clauses, with respect to force major clauses. But at the end of the day, it all trickled down to indemnity, wherein, no party was comfortable, into certain language. Those were incorporated in the contracts. I've even written a small article on this, that, how you can get out of this situation wherein you hit roadblocks when in a particular contract. So we introduced a third party expert to give comfort to the client with respect to certain inhibitions they had in the contract. And we suggested them alternatives. And finally, we agreed to some mutually party neutral clauses, which was a win win situation for both the parties. And then everyone, was relaxed.
Okay. There are many stages in contract negotiation. So, which
Yes.
stage, you get like that this is it. Like this is where, like in negotiation basically, where do you uh
Hmm.
do the specifications?
What happens is, see, generally we have drawn out templates, okay,
Okay.
and keeping in mind that there will be certain rewards we are going to get on those particular clauses from the clients. So
Mm.
we set it up in that manner, and over a period of time you understand that, what rewards you will get in the particular clauses that you have incorporated in the agreements.
Okay.
And we do have alternatives available with us. Okay, so in case we get a revert on any particular clause, so we do have settled alternatives which we can propose to the client in case they are not comfortable with the language we are proposing. So generally, clients do accept the alternatives we have, which are mutually agreeable and which create sort of a win-win situation for both the parties. So that is how we handle it.
Okay. Any pro tip you want to give to the freshers who are joining, who are doing contract management? Any pro tip you want to give them?
Yes, of course. So, in contracting, I would say that whenever you're making a contract, you should make it look like a story, you see.
Okay.
Because even though you are drafting a contract, you are not going to be the person who is going to be dealing with that contract in the future. So, you should make it as simple as possible. Keep the sentences short. Don't try to make it look like a legal mumbo jumbo, have complicated language and you know make it look like, oh fine, this contract jitna complicated hoga utna acha dikhega. I think that is not a good way to go for drafting. You should make it as simple as possible and as easy as possible for any third party reading it. They should be able to understand the meaning, what was the intention of the parties who have written the contract in such a manner. So I think you should have that intention, and accordingly you should draft whatever you're drafting.
Yeah, like this is very unorthodox advice you have given just right now that, do it in a storytelling format. Because like when I was doing freelancing work and I was writing the contract, I have seen two patterns, like in international clients and in domestic clients. So domestic clients are more, कि इतना ज्यादा जितने ज्यादा का पेजेस का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होगा उतना दे विल बी कि हाँ
Yeah.
कुछ है, देयर इज समथिंग.
Yes,
But international clients are like, you make it very specific, you make it very short. But
that's
yeah, but the matter should be very clear. Like my
yes,
obligations, my intention should be very clear to the second party, which is signing the contract. So I've
yes.
seen this two
I
different.
think that's the essence.
Yeah. So, like, can you share your experience in like what happened in your early career that shaped your perspective in the legal practice? Because you have done litigation as well. I haven't seen
Yes.
many people who, who have seen both the sides of the law, the litigation one and the corporate one. So yeah, I would love to hear your insights.
So you see, there's a saying about litigation lawyers that a good litigation lawyer is a good everything else. Okay. So litigation lawyer is basically pro into any field they choose to go to. But trust me, Shikha, litigation is not everyone's cup of tea. It takes a lot of hard work, lot of dedication, and to be bluntly honest, you don't get paid. I mean, I was not paid anything for the initial 4 years of my career. And I started my practice with Bombay High Court. I used to travel from my hometown, which is, I think, around 200 kilometers from the High Court. So I used to travel every day by train to Bombay and back to my hometown because obviously you're a fresher, you're still working hard, you do not have the income, so you really cannot think of settling down and paying rents in a city like Bombay. So
Mm,
it is not about a particular incident. I think it is about the journey,
mm,
you go through. And you should see that journey as an investment. I see it as an investment. Today, I am what I am, so confident. I'm professional in what I do is because of the journey I have had backing me up. So जैसे वो म्यूचुअल फंड और एसआईपीज रहते हैं ना,
mm.
ये तो थोड़ा 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 आप डालते रहो
Mm.
and you just don't keep checking your account every day, but you know somewhere down the line you are going to get like a lump sum reward.
Yeah.
So it is like the same thing. So you just keep doing your bit, and if you're good at something, you will definitely be rewarded. People will definitely seek you out, clients will definitely seek you out, companies will definitely want you to have it. But you really need to have that patience to keep going and not giving up.
Okay. Any incident you could recall from a litigation time, like when you thought that this advice or this helped me to go through it, like to meet that end point in any case or in any
Uh,
thing.
Basically, I mean, my senior advocate SK Jain. So, I really look up to him as my guru.
Mm,
So he used to teach us a lot of things. One of the things he taught us, that when the client comes to your doorstep for the first time, never have that label of that consultation charges, 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees. I mean, the person is very worried, and the person is coming to you because of a problem. Nobody happily comes to a lawyer. Okay. So, the first nature is to be helpful to that particular person, to give proper legal advice to that particular person. He may convert into your client or not.
mm,
Okay. So I have always kept that attitude to myself. If anyone has approached me with a problem, so I would not keep that label in my mind as the priority. My priority would be to give that particular person a proper advice, to calm down that particular person, to provide that comfort. And that has really helped me. And I think this approach has really helped a lot of other lawyers also to do well in their career. So that is one thing I have always kept as a principle at the back of my mind.
forward, like, can you recall any high pressure cases or negotiation that you did and where your legal strategy was very crucial? And how did you manage the risk and ensure the outcome is positive?
So yeah, so we were basically doing a land deal for a Fortune 100 company, and due diligence plays a very important role, obviously,
Hmm,
because when companies are investing hundreds of crores, they want to be very particular about everything being clean and clear, and all the records being very positive, in their favor. So in this land parcel, there was a litigation pending, though we had a lot of legal opinions from tier 1 law firms that what would be the probable end result of this litigation. But it was sort of a hitch, you can say, in the mind of the other party to purchase this land.
hmm,
So you mitigate the risk in such type of situations by way of giving suitable indemnities, that in case anything happens in the future,
hmm.
so you can rely on us, you can fall back on us, and we at our expenses are going to take care of that particular thing.
Okay. Okay, so
So
you
that is how
Mhm.
we manage the risk. We provided the comfort to the client, and by God's grace the transaction went through.
Okay, so you have to make the other party feel secure to
Of
go
course,
to
of
the
course, that is very important in any transaction. In
Hmm,
any transaction, you have to make the other party feel comfortable. You have to make the other party feel secured. uh, you don't have to make them feel like, okay, fine, after this is done, I'm going to run away, and
hmm.
I'm not going to be there to support you. So that kind of a support you should provide, which gives a lot of comfort, and which also helps you create a lot of goodwill in the future.
But
Yes,
in today's practices, what I see, and I have done it myself as well, that uh, I do give them some summary or points, but I do want them to be get converted and be my client. And I think that force or that compulsion uh, gets them away, because the other person also can
yeah.
sense it, yeah, that you are forcing yourself on them. So yeah, thank you. So with that part, with like in our field, the laws and regulations are changing like constantly, and
Yeah.
it has been like evolved so much from like past decade. So
Yes.
what strategies you use to, remain compliant yet innovative?
So, I think with today's technological advancement, it is not a great challenge. So you have a lot of material available online. So what I personally do is I follow a lot of newsletters on LinkedIn. Okay. So newsletters which revolve around contracting, then newsletters which revolve around the recent celebrated judgments. Then I also attend workshops whenever possible. Rather, not only me, I also encourage my team members to attend with me. So recently we had a labor law workshop in Pune,
Mm,
which I attended with the entire team, wherein they got updated regarding the current labor laws. They also got updated regarding the future amendments which are going to come.
mm,
So your knowledge bank needs to constantly keep increasing. And as a lawyer, you cannot be stagnant with what you learned in college. You
mm,
practically have to read every day.
mm,
Then I also advise you can do courses on Udemy. You
mm,
get a lot of courses on Udemy. And nowadays there are a lot of AI courses available because AI is the trend. So you need to also keep up with the technology, which ultimately helps you reduce your typical work you're doing. So
mm.
wherever possible you can use the technology to your help, which will ease out your work. So that is how I keep myself updated.
Okay. Have you faced any ethical dilemmas in your role? And if you have faced them, how did you address them without compromising your principles?
No, ethical dilemmas, I mean, as a litigation lawyer, every day. because बिकॉज अपने कंट्री में एक बहुत स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड डायलॉग है। अरे कुछ तो जुगाड़ कर लो ना,
हाँ.
इसका जरा देखो, जरा कुछ तो मैनेज कर लो, जरा डेट जल्दी का ले लो,
हम्म,
अपन कर लेंगे वगैरह।
हाँ.
सो द सिंपल solution for this is no. Nothing else. So you have to see, wherever you have to be strict, you have to be strict. Wherever you can be flexible, you should be flexible. But sometimes you need to put your foot down and just say no, this can't be done, and there is no other way, or there is no other beating around the bush that can be done around this.
Yeah. Like, yeah, people, like, there are all sorts of people you met in litigation. You do. Like,
Yes, true.
you see both the worlds, like, very, very, like, from a microscope you can see if you are in the litigation. You see the
True,
expressions
true.
turning into like sweet to aggression like this instantly, and you can't make it like how things or the person just what said has changed the statement. So yeah.
Yes,
So
I have personally had maybe over 100 matters as a
mm,
litigation lawyer in different courts. I mean, I have handled matters even in secluded courts, like, which are in small villages,
mm,
to Pune, to everywhere. So people are different. The judges, the mentality of judges are very different.
yeah.
The kind of atmosphere and the lawyers who practice in a particular place is different. So yes, you get a lot of variety.
Yeah, like when I was working with an edtech company, my senior told me that she was also in Bombay. She has done her LLM from Bombay. So she was presenting a client in the court, and she was wearing formals, but she was wearing miniskirt. So the judge called her that, hey, miniskirt. Like he didn't address her by her name, but with that, dress label. So that was very, inappropriate. And
True.
like here as well, I have seen many incidents where, senior advocates and they do tend to talk in some other tone, which you don't like, and the other like people around you know that, this is how it is, but you have to be calm and composed and you have to maintain your decorum and your tone. So yeah, that happens a lot. So moving
Yes.
along, what specific skills would you like law students to develop, which would make them excel in contract management or corporate governance?
So, as I said, for contracts, you should always try to keep it simple, crisp, straightforward, understandable. So keep in mind, keep that in back of of your mind that you are reciting a story.
Hmm.
You're not putting in legal mumbo jumbo in the particular contract. So, what I would say is always make pointers first.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want to draft something,
Hmm.
you first have your pointers ready, and then under those particular pointers, you start elaborating. That will give sort of a flow, and that will also help you in drafting the contract very well. So this is like a tip, and this is what I follow till date. So whatever comes to my mind, I will just keep writing it down in my diary. I'll make all the pointers. I may or may not use those pointers, but whatever comes to my mind, the raw ideas, I will immediately write down, make pointers about it. And then I start making the agreement more and more elaborate. So it has really worked for me, and I think it will work for most of people as well if they try and practice it in that manner. As far as corporate governance is concerned, corporate governance is not like a codified law or something. So corporate governance is more of accountability, and being compliant in all the statutory requirements of various authorities. So if you want to be good at corporate governance, I would like to put it negatively that you should learn to do things which you're not supposed to do.
Okay.
So, you can go through certain cases, like the celebrated case, Satyam scandal hua tha. It was
Yes.
way back.
Hmm.
It laid down a benchmark for corporate governance,
Hmm.
ahead.
Hmm.
So to maybe refer to cases like this, so you learn
Hmm.
what was done wrong and what is not supposed to be done.
Yeah,
So
there's one more case about Cafe Coffee Day when the owner died.
yes, yes, yes.
So there was also
So
some lacuna that happened in the organization.
yes, yes, yes. So you need to learn things by way of examples. There are a lot of examples, and across available, that what you are not supposed to do, and that is corporate governance.
Okay. So, what lessons did you learn from the courtroom? Like, if I am a fresher right now and I want to be a litigation lawyer, so what's one thing that law schools don't teach you in the classrooms that they should be knowing before entering the courtroom?
So see, basically law school teach you theoretical subjects. Law
Hmm.
school teaches you law. It doesn't teach you how to apply the law.
Hmm.
Okay. So the practical advice that I would like to give is that you should go for internships. You should try and do as many internships as possible the moment you step into law school, wherein you have court exposure, but you should, try not to. Uh, uh, I mean, you should try that you don't want to learn everything at once. कि आज मैं गई और मुझे सब कुछ आ जाए. ठीक है?
Hmm.
Try to be observant. ठीक है? And like how I used to do it whenever I used to go to the courts, I used to tell myself that I want to learn five new things today.
Hmm.
Be it anything, small thing, like how to file a thing, exhibit number kaise padta hai, small, small things. And when I used to be done with those five things, I used to feel satisfied. Okay, fine, I have learned those five things. But I would also like to add there are a lot of students who don't get internship opportunities. So for such students, now courts are public forums.
Hmm.
Okay. So you can directly visit the courts. And now you have websites like ecourts,
Hmm.
you have a website like high court websites. So wherein you can even see which judge is assigned with what type of matters.
Mm.
So you can see the assignments of the judges. So if suppose like contract is my favorite subject, so I can see what judges assigned with probably matters relating to specific performance, contract law. So I can directly go sit in the courtroom and observe the proceedings. So
Mm.
which will give me an idea that future may, kya hota hai, how practically the cases are presented, how they are argued, how the counsels put across their points to the judges. So you can just directly go to the courtroom and observe the proceedings. And you should try and do it as much as possible. So as soon as you graduate,
Mm.
you have some backing of the practical knowledge as well. And you are not like totally blank about how to go about things. It might also give you an idea about your interest. You
Mm.
might be listening to an argument and you might be like, that's it, this is my career, and this is what I'm going to do.
Like, um, what would you suggest to the law students to start your internship in which year?
I would suggest you should start from the very first year itself.
Okay. Because um many people or many teachers, they say that, first you should learn the law, you should understand the law, and then you should see how it is being implemented in the court. So
So that so you will know after you graduate. But
mm,
then I would suggest, I mean, it is my personal experience as well. I started internship from the very first year
mm,
when I took admission in law school.
mm,
So at that point of time, I didn't know anything. What is a plaint? What is a written statement? What is due diligence? The
mm,
first office I went to, I have actually done filings,
mm,
means arranging the files. So
mm,
that is where I started from.
mm,
But then, still, I mean, I continued the internship for a period of 1 year. I used to attend college, and
mm,
after that, I used to visit the office of the advocate where I used to intern.
mm,
In that 1 year, I learned so many things which were later covered in my syllabus, which I didn't theoretically study.
mm.
But then it helped me in my academics rather, because I already knew these practically
Yeah.
before actually theoretically
Mm.
studying it.
Yeah, I could relate
So,
to it. Yeah. Like I could relate to this point because I started going to the internship like in my third year, and I was like my mentor was Dr. Iti Kaushal. She is Posh expert. So,
okay.
she used to tell us, and like sir used to take labor court cases. So she used to tell us that, you are settling these files, you are sequencing these files, read what is written in them. Okay. Read the
Yes.
judgments. Okay, sit with us, sit in the meeting. And she used to take us to the meetings as well. She was very kind to do so
Mhm.
because after when like I left the law, like I left that law firm, I see that many seniors or where you do go to internship, they don't provide you that same exposure. They don't take you to the
Yeah.
meetings. They don't tell you
Mhm.
that these specific things are needed from you. Okay, you need to do your research. You need to do this before going to the meeting. So yeah, that was a really good experience for me. Like I did my internship went for 2 years.
No, so here also I would like to add that you will meet a lot of such lawyers. Maybe not intentionally because but they're genuinely so busy and they're genuinely at such a level wherein you know they might not have time to actually teach you.
Mm,
But here, you have to apply your own mind. You
mm,
have to learn through observation as
yeah,
much as possible. So you
yeah,
shouldn't wait for someone to come sit before you and teach you. If
mm,
someone is doing something, you learn from observation, you ask people around.
mm,
The way I did it, I made friends with all the clerks in the court.
okay.
So, because I knew that my seniors were so busy, if
Mm,
I want to learn a simple provision, it would be awkward for me only to go and ask them, okay, please teach me this
mm,
provision. So I used to go and ask the clerks, and
mm.
they used to teach me, and they used to genuinely help me.
Yeah. So, what she did with us, she told us to, come along in the meetings, and she would say when we came back to the office, she used to like test us, like what did you learn today? Okay, and what was the thing that the client mentioned and you didn't know, and what was the provision which will help him or her with that thing.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
like that was like bang on experience with Posh and everything.
Great.
Right. So, what's the most overlooked aspect of contract drafting that often leads to disputes?
Vagueness.
Hey guys, thank you for watching the podcast and please like, share, and subscribe the channel. Thank you.